Ever heard of a trade war where one side's main argument is, hey, you're not hurting us, you're hurting yourself? That's pretty much the bold strategy Canada, led by figures like Ontario Premier Doug Ford, took when facing down potential U.S. tariffs. It's a fascinating story not just about politics, but about how deeply our two countries are connected, almost like economic Siamese twins. Instead of playing the victim card or talking about old friendships, Ford's message was pure, hard-nosed economics. He basically said, go ahead, put tariffs on our goods. All you're doing is making things more expensive for your own businesses and your own people. It's a gutsy move. And today, we're going to break down why it's also a surprisingly effective one. We'll look at the intricate web that ties the Canadian and American economies together and explore how this unconventional approach reframed the entire debate. So, how does this argument work? It's simple, really. Tariffs aren't just some abstract number in a trade deal. They are a real cost. When the U.S. government puts a tariff on Canadian steel, for example, it's not some official in Ottawa who pays the bill. It's the American construction company in Ohio that now has to pay more for its steel beams. It's the car manufacturer in Michigan that sees its production costs go up. And who do you think they pass that extra cost on to? You guessed it, the American consumer buying a new house or a new car. Ford's message was aimed directly at the American public and businesses. He laid out the facts. Canada isn't just some random trading partner. For 17 U.S. states, Canada is their #1 export destination. For another 12 states, we're #2. This isn't just about friendship. It's about jobs, profits, and the economic health of communities all across the United States. Let's get specific and follow the materials. This is where it gets really interesting. Think about the car you drive. There's a good chance parts of it crossed the U.S.-Canada border multiple times before it ever rolled onto the dealership lot. The supply chain for the auto industry is a perfect example of this deep integration. A component might be made in Ontario, shipped to a plant in Michigan for assembly into a larger part, which then gets sent back to a factory in Quebec before finally ending up in a finished vehicle in the U.S. each time a tariff is applied. The cost just keeps stacking up. It's the same story in aerospace. The high-grade nickel needed for advanced manufacturing and jet engines. A huge chunk of it comes from Ontario. Without that reliable high-quality supply, American aerospace companies would face serious disruptions and higher costs. This isn't a one-way street. It's a superhighway of economic activity flowing in both directions. And it doesn't stop there. The aluminum that goes into everything from soda cans to airplane bodies, Quebec is a massive supplier to U.S. manufacturers. That fertilizer that American farmers use to grow their crops. Saskatchewan is a world leader in potash, a key ingredient, and a huge amount of it goes south of the border. Even something as simple as the road salt used to keep highways safe in northern U.S. states during winter often comes from Canada. What Ford's argument highlighted is that these aren't just individual products. This is a deeply woven economic fabric. Trying to rip it apart with tariffs is like pulling a single thread from a complex tapestry. You don't just damage the thread. You risk unraveling the entire picture. These supply chains took decades to build and optimize. They can't just be replaced overnight without causing major headaches, production slowdowns, and price hikes for everyone. Now, here's where Ford added a brilliant twist to his argument. He didn't just talk about numbers and supply chains. He framed it as a matter of principle, specifically conservative economic principle. As a conservative premier himself, he essentially looked at his counterparts in the U.S. and brought up the legacy of Ronald Reagan. Reagan's economic philosophy, a cornerstone of modern American conservatism, championed free markets and open trade. Ford's message was subtle but powerful. Aren't we on the same team here? Aren't we the ones who believe that free and open trade creates prosperity for everyone? By doing this, he lifted the debate out of partisan bickering. It was no longer about Canada versus the U.S. or Democrats versus Republicans. It became a debate about economic doctrine. What's the best way to achieve prosperity? Is it through the protectionist walls of tariffs, or through the open doors of free trade that have defined North American success for decades. This ideological framing was a masterful move, appealing to a shared economic philosophy that transcends national borders. So, who was this message really for? It wasn't just for the bigwigs in Washington, D.C. Ford's strategy was a multi-pronged attack aimed at a whole range of American audiences. He was talking to state governors, showing them exactly how many billions of dollars in exports their state sends to Canada. He was talking to business leaders, the CEOs of companies in manufacturing, agriculture, and energy, reminding them how much their bottom line depends on stable, predictable cross-border trade. And perhaps most importantly, he was talking to American workers. The message was clear. A trade war with Canada isn't some distant political game. It's a direct threat to your job, your factory, and your community's economic well-being. By focusing on state-level data and real-world supply chains, the argument brought the consequences home, making it a domestic issue within the United States, not just a foreign policy one. At its heart, the strategy presented a clear choice. A fork in the road for the Canada-US relationship. Path 1 is the road we've been on for a long time: continued cooperation. It's a path built on a deeply integrated North American economy where goods, services, and capital flow freely, creating wealth and opportunity on both sides of the border. This path acknowledges our interdependence and uses it as a source of strength. It's a path of stability, predictability, and mutual benefit. Path 2 is the road of escalation. This is where tariffs are met with counter-tariffs, a tit-for-tat cycle that creates uncertainty, disrupts supply chains, and ultimately harms businesses and consumers in both countries. It's a path that can lead to economic disruption and sour a relationship that has been the envy of the world. Ford's argument wasn't a threat, but a sober presentation of the consequences. It laid out the two futures and asked, which one makes more sense for our shared prosperity? The Canada-US economic relationship is truly one of a kind. We're talking about one of the largest and most comprehensive trading partnerships on the entire planet. Hundreds of billions of dollars in goods and services cross our shared border every single year. The question that Doug Ford's strategy brought to the forefront is how we choose to manage this incredible interdependence, especially when tensions flare up. Do we see each other as competitors in a zero-sum game, where one side's gain must be the other's loss? Or do we recognize that we are partners in a deeply integrated system where the success of one is intrinsically linked to the success of the other? By shifting the focus from confrontation to consequence, the conversation changed. It became less about winning a fight and more about making a strategic choice for long-term economic health. In the end, this approach is a powerful reminder that in a globalized world, economies are not isolated islands. What happens in one country has ripple effects far beyond its borders. The story of Canada's response to U.S. tariff threats shows that the most effective arguments are often not the loudest or the most aggressive. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply hold up a mirror and show the other side the economic reality of their own decisions. It's a strategy that relies on facts, logic, and a deep understanding of shared interests. It reframes the narrative from one of conflict to one of common sense. And it underscores a fundamental truth for Canada and the United States. Our economic destinies are, and will likely always be, intertwined. Long-term prosperity for both nations depends on keeping that relationship stable, predictable, and mutually beneficial. Thanks so much for watching and diving deep into this fascinating piece of economic diplomacy with us. If you found this breakdown interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. We love exploring the hidden stories behind the headlines. Let us know in the comments what you think about this strategy. Was it brilliant or risky? We'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.